It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
Let's move on to Green Lantern's question. Let's talk about, okay, maybe you're listening to the Money Guy show and you just found us and you're like, uh-oh, I might have made a mistake. Now what do I do? He says, what if you find the Money Guy show after having bought a car that doesn't fit into 23.8? Where in the foo would you prioritize this? I think I know where you would prioritize it, but I wanted to know what you guys think.
So somebody went to the dealership, Brian, and they said, man, you won't believe this. They gave me this car and they said, hey, well, let's not talk about the price of the car. Let's talk about how much monthly payment do you want? What do you want your monthly payment to be? It's never how much can you afford. They said, what do you want your payment to be? And you said, hey, I want my payment to be $150. They say, boy, do I have the car for you. Check this out. You can be driving that nice, new, fancy, super luxurious, leather, whatever, for $150 a month. And you're like, oh my gosh, that sounds incredible. Didn't think it was possible. And then you get back, you start listening to the Money Guy show. We tell you about 23.8 and you go, oh, wow. I put 0% down on this car and I financed it for 7 years and my payment's $150. How do I get that water back up the hill? What do I do to correct that?
That's one scenario. I'm sitting here thinking about, because I immediately got a visual. And if we do, because we went back and forth. We're like, do you let Brian do this as a wild man as part of the Q&A, or do we make this the foundational part of the Q&A? And I didn't think about it when we were having those discussions, because there is a great video that we could react to where it's at a dealership and every employee there had a car payment that was over $800 to $1,000 because they could, you can afford any, because you're going with it, the payment was $150, but these are people who bought really fancy cars.
Spend $1,000 a month.
So they're spending $1,000 a month, but they're also spending $1,000 a month for 60 months or 72 months, because these are $75,000 cars that they went out and bought. So when Green Lantern, and I get it, Batman had his Batmobile. If you're a superhero, you want to have a fancy car. You can't just show up on the crime scene, in the Honda Accord. It probably would look a little weird. So you probably got a little out over your skis trying to, keep up with Batman and all of his billions of dollars that he has as Bruce Wayne. So I get it, Green Lantern, but it is one of those things where you have to figure out where you go take your medicine to get this thing back on track. The first thing, you're going to have to really do kind of a risk assessment of how bad of a situation you've gotten yourself into. Is that interest rate high or low? I mean, because there's a chance, because people are always out there poking around saying, I got a 0% interest rate, or I got a 1 or 2% interest rate. Then that's low interest enough that I'm going to let you, that's the 3 part of high interest debt you can skip over if you have a 0 to 2% interest rate. It's really 0 to 4%, but I still want you to have a fear about that, is that cars depreciate quickly. And you probably have gap coverage, which is a whole nother thing that's going to cost you extra money.
Yep.
Because you have to make sure the insurance company's made whole if you do wreck the car. But it's one of those things where that's why I don't love you financing cars over 3 years, because it lets your eyes get way too big for your wallet or your purse. And that's the part I don't feel comfortable with. So, Bo, I'm struggling with, how do you let somebody who went out there and financed a $75,000 car in 3? You can't. If you did 3, if I told somebody who had $75,000 and they have a normal, income, is not the income that should have paid cash for that $75,000 car, how does that person catch it up?
Yeah.
Because if you did 3 years, that might be almost all of your paycheck. You don't get to do Roth. You don't get to do emergency reserves. From a triage standpoint, that doesn't feel healthy either.
This is painful. This is what I think, and this is cold water. And we're not normally cold water kind of folks, but you got 2 options. You either get it into 23.8, figure out, okay, how do I put more money into this? Well, I need to rework my amortization schedule. I need to pay this thing off in 3 years. Or if you find yourself in a situation where that's not possible, you may have to get rid of the car. I mean, if you're not underwater on the car, if you can actually sell it and get out of it, you might just have to get out of it and say, you know what, I made a mistake, and I'm not gonna do great on this transaction, but I gotta get out of the $75,000 car and get into a $30,000 car, and that sucks. That's not fun. Nobody wants to do that. It's not pleasant, but sometimes we have to do the hard stuff, and we have to make the hard decisions so we can set our stuff up for the good stuff later on. So if you're in a bad car situation where you bought too much car or you have like really bad terms, either get the terms better, figure out the math, and if the math doesn't pan out, you might have to get rid of the car.
Yeah, I think I'm sitting here, it's tough love wise. I'm sitting here going, you got to either go make more money, you got to cut your expenses somewhere else, or you just got to get rid of it.
Yep.
I mean, that's really because I hate it that there's this world out there encouraging consumption and consumerism to where you think that the car is going to create your happiness. And then you find out after owning the car for 3 months, no. It's a car.
Kids still draw chicken nuggets even in nice cars.
So it's I hate to say that, Green Lantern, and I hate that you're going to show up now on the crime scene probably in a Civic or an Accord versus this fancy dancy car that you went out there and got yourself. But it'll be okay. Bruce Wayne understands that he's just in this really special situation.
I liked this question, Green Lantern, because I appreciate the honesty of like, hey, I just found you. And like the thing is like, yeah, sometimes you find yourself in these situations. And so like, what do I do now? And I appreciate that you're trying to be that
true.
financial
That's right.
mutant and have that mindset. Like, okay, if I want to apply this now, how do I do that? So thanks for your question.